Mr. and Mrs. Kome lived in the south-south part of Nigeria, in the city of Warri in Delta State. Warri is the capital of Delta State. Warri is a beautiful and large city. They have 3 children, Maro, 17 years old, Lucky, 15, and Zeno, 10 years old. Zeno just concluded her primary school, and she was about to start her junior secondary school in a boarding school. Zeno was very excited to start her new school, as she has always dreamt of leaving home for school. Her older brothers attend a boarding school too, and she saw how they were given preferential treatment whenever they come back home from holidays. And when they are to return to school, their parents bought them so many provisions like biscuits, beverages, chocolates, etc. Zeno has always looked forward to when she will also leave home for boarding school. It was a Sunday evening, and Zeno's clothes were already packed in a green box, and her provisions were carefully arranged in a blue Ghana Must Go by Mario and Lucky. Her parents were going to drop her off at her new school. You could see the excitement in Zeno's face. "You better calm down so you don't forget anything. This one you won't allow us to hear word because you are going to a boarding school," Lucky said, trying to tease Zeno. "Don't mind her," Mario added. "And leave me alone. It is my own time to shine," Zeno replied, her siblings. "But I will miss the both of you," she added. "Zeno, where are you? You better hurry up so we don't arrive your school late," Mrs. Kome shouted. "Okay, Mom, I'm almost done packing," she replied, looking around her room if she had forgotten anything. They arrived to school, and Zeno could see other children who were resuming school just like her. For the first time, Zeno thought of missing her family members, her mom and dad, her siblings Lucky and Maro. She paused for some seconds and thought of how she will go several days, weeks, and even months without having her family members around. But immediately she snapped out of her thought and told herself, "I am going to make new friends here, and I am going to enjoy my provisions along." She smiled as she remembered all the goodies in her bag. "Here we are, Zeno. We have finally arrived your school," her dad said, as they parked in front of the big school gate. "You are welcome," a man dressed in a blue uniform, whom they assumed to be one of the securities, said as he approached them. "Thank you very much," Mr. Kome replied as he gave the man his left hand for a shake. "I suppose your daughter is a new student here," he said, looking at Zeno, who was seated at the back seat in the car. "Yes, sir," Mr. Kome replied him. "Okay, you can drive in," he said, pointing at the other security to open the gate for them. They drove in, and the security man showed them where they are to register Zeno's arrival time, and a woman took Zeno to her dorm as her parents drove out of the school compound. "Hello, my name is Mercy. I am in the senior secondary school, and I will be your bunkmate," a slim and tall girl said as she stood in front of Zeno, who was trying to arrange her luggage into the wardrobe assigned to her. "I know you are new here. Don't worry. I will show you around and tell you some things you need to know about our school," she added, smiling and making Zeno feel comfortable in her new environment. "Thank you very much," Zeno replied as she smiled back. It was Monday morning, and Zeno and other new students were directed to their various classes. Zeno was taken to JSS 1A. There are about 60 students in her class. Zeno located her seat with her name inscribed on her desk. Everyone sat quietly as they await their teacher. "My name is Mr. Collins, and I will be your maths teacher, and also your form master. Is that clear?" a young man said, standing in front of the class. "Yes, sir," they all responded chorously. "Hey, you! Why are you taking my class?" he said, pointing towards Zeno, who was trying to collect her pen from one of her mates. "I am sorry, sir," she responded. "Stand up right now before I descend on you with my cane," The teacher continued. Do you think this is your house, where you do things the way you like? If your parents did not train you well, a good man like me would do their job very well for them. At this time, the other children were already scared, as they did not expect their teacher to react that way. Zeno just stood there in shock and trembling for what Mr. Collins might do next. I am sure you have not heard of Mr. No Nonsense. Well, that is me, and I will not take nonsense from all of you. Is that clear? He said with a coarse voice, and they all chorused, Yes, sir! The bell rang, and the school was over for the day, and they all retired to their dorms. Zeno laid on her bunk. She thought of all that transpired in her class today with her math teacher. She recalled all the terrible things he said to her and concluded that her first day wasn't a good experience and she was going to try her best to be in her best behavior in subsequent classes. Is everything okay with you, Zeno? Mercy, her bunkmate, asked. Yes, everything is fine, Senior Mercy, she replied. I hope you enjoyed your class today, she asked again. Yes, I did, Zeno replied. Or should I tell her what happened today in class with Mr. Collins? There will be no need. She can't do anything. After all, she is just a student like me, Zeno thought to herself. Okay, Zeno, good night, Mercy said as she laid on her bunk to sleep. Good night, Senior Mercy, she replied and slept off too. It was a week later after Zeno's resumption into her new school, and she hoped that subsequent weeks got better as Mr. Collins did not make things easier for her. He picks on every little thing she does. One day, Mr. Collins had given an assignment, which he instructed to be submitted before he resumes class at 8 a.m. Zeno had told herself that she was going to be the first to submit the assignment so as to gladden Mr. Collins' countenance towards her. But something strange happened that day. After Mr. Collins was done with marking the assignment, he called out the names of those who did the assignment, and Zeno's name wasn't mentioned. Zeno, where is your assignment? Why is your name not on my list? Mr. Collins asked her with a frown on his face. Zeno, get up! Zeno got up and said, Sir, I submitted my work this morning. Are you calling me a liar? Mr. Collins said as he walked towards Zeno and dragged her out of her seat. Come here, you little spoiled brat. I told you I was going to deal with you, he said, pointing at Zeno, who was already in front of the class shivering and crying. Mr. Collins brought out his cane and began to flog Zeno. Zeno screamed and cried, but no one came to her rescue. Mr. Collins flogged her until his anger was satisfied. Go back to your seat, he said, as he pushed Zeno away from his podium. Zeno cried and staggered as she walked back to her seat and wondered what could have happened to her assignment. Mr. and Mrs. Come came to visit their daughter in school. As they sat in the visiting hall, they noticed how lean Zeno has become, and she was looking pale. Zeno, why do you look sick? What is wrong with you? Mrs. Come asked her daughter as she placed her hand on Zeno's face and looked into her eyes. Mom, Zeno said as she thought of telling her parents how Mr. Collins had been hostile towards her. What is it, Zeno? Her mom asked, and was ready to hear what her daughter was going to say. Let's find out next week on this channel if Zeno told her parents about Mr. Collins' hostility towards her.